allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number 2, call to order the village board, the special village board meeting on September 8th, 2022. Roll call shows all board members, administrator, and clerk treasurer are in attendance along with the attorneys. Number 4, new business, a discussion and possible action on Wild Wind Phase 1 assessment.
So the initial preliminary was, I believe, at about 4,400 per parcel. After the construction is done, the cost dropped significantly down to around $3,000.41, or $3,000.41. So that's where we're at right now. After everything was done, the information we need tonight is what the final assessment will be, the time frame for the payback of the special assessment if they choose to do so, and then I can go forward with getting the information for the final special assessment. That would be at a different at the next meeting. So those are kind of the things I need direction from you guys on.
Would that final assessment you have up there at $3,041 be reduced any further?
That is up to the board.
Okay. You have another 15,000 available, is that correct? That could be applied.
Potentially.
15 to 20, thereby reducing the 3,041.46 to 2,533.33. Is that correct?
So if it was 15,000, it'd be at 2,541.46.
Right. But at 20, it'd be 2,533.33. Is that correct?
I think it's a little less actually now.
Okay, according to your notes here.
Right. We got more updated numbers.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
So what would that, if that 20 were applied, it wouldn't be 2,533, it would be something less?
Yeah.
Do you know what that number is?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. So we can reduce that, which I think is more palatable. If I were in phase 1 to 2,533 or less. So now it becomes an issue of how long we could give them to pay it back. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Any recommendations from past experience? I mean, you can always pay it up front,
Right.
but would you give them up to 3 years?
Well, Brookwood Drive was 2,600 or so. That was 2 years. The Grandview was around 4,400, and that was 4 years.
About $1,000 a year.
Yeah, okay.
Then
Are those monies separate from the money you're talking about to assist on Cedar Street?
that's part of the Cedar
There's-
Street money.
That is hard.
So the village CIP has 49,000 in it.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, the 49,000 was budgeted for 100% for Cedar Street because it's a lot larger of a reconstruction, and so, and it's not the ending of a subdivision. The funds could be found through the water and sewer fund, which is actually driving the Cedar Street project more than the streets are. So basically, water and sewer could cover the
already. So we could take a portion of the 49,000 and apply that?
That's where the 15 to 20 would come from.
Okay.
Yes.
So what happened with Vans and Clegg? So the initial discussion about the agenda for this meeting was to contact them and then present what we had found.
Both basically said they don't believe that they're responsible. I don't know if the attorneys have any other input.
In my conversations with Clegg's attorney, I think I saw he's here. I don't know, do you want to speak on behalf of your client?
I certainly can. I'm on the list to talk. You want me to do it now?
Sure.
I'm attorney Greg Curtis with Hurley Clark Law Firm. So basically, I represent Jim Clegg, James Land Company. So Jim Clegg was not the developer. If you look at the development agreement, he's not on there. So in our opinion, he's not responsible because he's not the developer. Number two, in the agreement that was signed, there was a page 3 when it was signed that said the village was going to assess and then pay for the top coat and then assess for it. That's the way Attorney Sorensen always did it, as far as I know. So that was always what the process was supposed to be. When it got recorded, unfortunately, page 3 was not added when it got recorded, but the original agreement that was signed had a page 3 that said this is how it's supposed to work. You assess it, you take care of it, and you assess it back to the landowners. So my client personally, when he sold to his personal, whoever bought it from him, he gave them notice as well and the offer to purchase. To the best of my knowledge, every single one of them had said that the top coat is their responsibility, it's not included. So at least from Jim Clegg's standpoint, and James Land Company, he is not responsible for that cost.
Similar from Vans, I think there was some additional conversation regarding damage to a cul-de-sac. You spoke to Jason about that.
Yeah, potentially.
So Vans believes that they informed everyone as well?
They know they did. They have a separate handout that they make them sign, supposedly, is what I was.
Okay. Can I ask who here has a home from Vans?
There's no document in that folder. No, we didn't
Okay.
sign anything.
So they submitted, I don't know if we have a copy of it, that email, inviting anyone to purchase a property from Vans to contact his attorney directly, but they did not sign representation with him.
Is that correct? When you recorded the developer's agreement, it just never had page 3? So the page that said that they were gonna do a special assessment never actually got recorded anywhere in the actual official record?
What I was told by Vans's attorney, or the Vans attorney, I should say, is that a full copy was provided to the title company. He personally received a call from someone at the title company saying, we're missing page 3. He sent a fully executed document back to the title company, and he doesn't know how they still reported the one that was missing, page 3, but ultimately that was the
So
development.
the title company didn't include page 3, and actually made
Could-
the official document?
Excuse me, could we just ask if you're going to speak that you would please identify yourself?
I'm Ben Schmidt, I live at 1165 Esther Avenue.
Thank you.
I'm on the list to talk later.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, so Clegg thinks that they notified everyone. And Clegg thinks that they're not the developer. Somehow they didn't sell any lots and didn't sell any homes in there. Clegg believes that there's somebody else that's the developer for the entire subdivision.
Yeah, if you want to look at the development agreement, it was Vans.
Vans did every lot in that division?
Well, Vans was the developer.
Well-
If you look at the agreement, that's what
Okay,
it says.
but Vans didn't sell every lot. Jim
That-
Clegg
that-
sold some of
that-
those lots,
that-
correct?
That may be true, but
Okay,
I'm
so-
just saying that Jim Clegg
So-
is not the developer and look, you
Okay, but Jim Clegg feels that he's passed that information on as well? Is that what we're being told?
Yes, it is my understanding, he had 11 lots and he notified to the best of my knowledge, he notified everybody that the top coat was gonna be the responsibility of the buyer.
Okay. Who's got a home here from, that they bought from Clegg property?
I have Boardwalk Builders,
Okay,
not Vans.
okay.
When we bought from Boardwalk Builders, they gave us this paper, which would have been after the date of when they talked. So they talked about that, the developers agreement here at the village, May of 2017, July 20th, 2017, probably when they sent the paperwork over for the title company. And they missed page 3 that had the part that said the stuff about a special assessment. But we got this from our builder that says no proposed special assessments, no pending special assessments, no special assessments of any nature whatsoever, and it was from the village. And this is after the date of when they looked at all that stuff.
This is the village one.
It's from the village.
Yeah,
I
that's,
think it's Steve on there.
yes, it is.
So for me, this is the issue. We bought the house and said, no special assessments, the road's all good, road's taken care of. Came down and asked, showed them this in the office, they said, should be good. We figured it's good, until like, whenever we got the last meeting. So, on our end, everything was already supposed to be taken care of for the development. It was assumed that the village would have, based on the fact that they said there wasn't any assessments coming, they would have already known that we were gonna be responsible for the road, and they would have told us that ahead of time. So that's the issue, at the heart of it for me anyways, is that.
What this actually means, and if you can back me up, Gene, is at the date that you purchased this property, there were no special assessments on
But this property
not future assessments.
this right here says that you guys talked on the May of 2017 and said that on the page 6, or the page that was omitted, that they were going to do a special assessment for the road. So you would have already known that however many months ago this was. This would have been in July of 2017. This was November of 2018. So a year before, you would have known that there was a special assessment coming because you already talked about it.
They're not talking about future assessments on this sheet. This is to just clear your
Any
title.
proposed special assessments,
There, and
this is already here saying there was one.
what Jeannie is saying is that there wasn't a proposal already to have a
Correct.
special assessment.
So it has nothing to do with assessments in 2022 because we wouldn't know in the
So you're
future.
saying if somebody buys a house somewhere and says, are you planning to do anything, and the village knew a year before that we were gonna be on the hook for a road that was being put in, you just would expect not to tell them?
Because the projects don't always go the way that they're planned to go. So something will be pushed off for 2 years, for 3 years, for 5
Yeah, but
years.
wouldn't it be-
So when you do that, you don't say, well, I mean, everybody assumes that the road that they live on is going to be redone at some point, right? But you don't say, but it doesn't become pending until they've actually taken an action. The current sitting board, wasn't,
Well, I'm
most
not
of us
saying it was
weren't
you,
here.
when I say you, I meant.
Right,
the
but until the current sitting board takes some action to bring it up, it doesn't become a pending assessment until it starts to become,
So-
I mean, just because there's an agreement, there's a de facto agreement with everyone in the entire village right now that eventually their road will be redone,
I understand
right?
that.
But everybody's paperwork, when they go to buy a property, won't say that there's a future assessment, because just because we know that it's going to happen, until it's actually been established that this is when we're going to do the project, and these are the funds, and this is the company that's gonna do it, and here's an estimate, it doesn't show up on this paperwork.
So when the development gets put in, and we get a paper saying there's no proposed, no anything, we come to the village office and ask specifically if we're on the hook for the road, and we're told, no, you're all good,
Jim's gonna take care of it.
we're good.
Jim's
Yeah.
gonna take care of it.
We were told it was, we were
By
told,
who we were told was a low-level clerk, and he's sitting right here as our current person with the signature on the paper. So it's, he's the one that said, I mean, we asked, or what the.
we're making somebody angry, I don't know. But I guess the hard for me is like, the road wasn't done. It wasn't that we were waiting for it to be refinished. The road was obviously not done because it wasn't up to the height of the curbing.
Yes.
You know, like, and it's just one of those costs that, are we gonna pay for that, or is that already included in the cost of the development? And based on what the builder told us, when we got the paperwork from them, and what the village office told us, we weren't on the hook for the road. That was already part of all the costs, whatever was rolled in for the cost of whatever we paid to get into there, it was already all rolled in. That was what we were told.
Well, both the builders, the builders have come and said, like Vans has come and said, they told everyone.
We didn't have vans, we had boardwalk.
Well, I don't know, I don't know if anybody's.
Those were the two
talked
builders
about
that built basically every house.
Jim was already the developer.
They
Well,
told you
Jim stopped by and
was
said he was. Jim showed up the first day and told me that he's
Like he's the developer.
That's how we can put.
he showed up the first day and told us that he was the developer, this is his land, he told us the whole story about it all.
Some trees.
And then told us we had to put certain trees in the front yard.
Give me trees.
It's like, I don't know if you caught the level of sarcasm in my comment before that Jim wasn't
Yes.
the developer.
I know.
I mean,
but
I understand the lawyer's here, and he says he's
Yes.
not the developer, but
he
from,
made
from a
himself rich,
layperson.
and then his
yeah.
brother showed up and wanted to put my yard in and said that his brother developed the whole place, told me the whole story again. Like the whole family came by, another brother came up, I
Yeah.
met all three of
Oh,
them.
yeah, I completely understand.
It's frustrating.
I understand.
I'm Rick Haynes, I live up after him. And when you spoke, you talked about just the top coat, that we were liable for the top coat. But the price that is being thrown around here, that's for the repairs, and that's what the big issue was before, was having Jim pay for the repairs, because they were up there, and how much of that is the repairs on top of the top coat?
As of right now, very minimal. That's what fell off. We didn't know the quality of the road underneath. That's why the initial assessment was so high.
So the top coat is what the figure that you gave us? Without any base work, without any repairs on what fell apart?
No. It's the total cost of the MCC construction of the road, the repairs as well.
Yeah, see, that's the point.
Right.
No.
Anytime that we have a road that's sat over a few years, you're always gonna have repair costs in it. It
It
wasn't.
says right in there
It says right in here.
that Jim, the developer is liable for any repairs on the road. We're only liable for the top coat.
Yeah, until the village took possession of it from Jim.
But it does not say that anyway.
It's just, say,
Jared Zweers, 1155 Black Oak Court. Pertaining to all this, I'm going to hit a couple parts of this. In this development agreement, James Clegg is listed as the developer. He's got everything on here, so he might have a hard time talking out of that. If we go back to mysterious page 3, move back up to page 2, which does hit on the improvements, public streets. Item number 3 notes that the developer further accepts full liability for any or all premature failure, displacement, or breakup of said binder layer, shall assume full responsibility for the repair of any problems in a timely manner. Part 6, which was on page 3, which was the missing page, has the resolution to approve notice for pending improvements and assessment. So that we knew was coming per this, but in this, it does note that the developer accepts all full liability for any or all premature failure. And there were a lot of failures in there. So whether you say it's, well, he was working on it where the town had taken it over at that point, those were failures, that is all noted on here, and that's quite a bit of this cost. So if that is gonna be the way everything reads out, then that falls on the developer. And if the town took possession of everything by then it falls on the village. It's all your paperwork, so.
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you. So I have the development, there are different phases, and this is for the first phase. And it says this agreement,
Put it up.
this 20th day of July 2017 between Vans Realty and Construction of Appleton, Inc., hereinafter developer, and the Village of Hortonville. So this phase was, I'm telling you, that's what it was Vans Realty and Construction. Just from clarification, the bulk of that, of the assessment, you're saying is just the top coat, correct? You said it was a small, very small portion.
13,000.
Excuse me?
13,000 in repairs out of the 96, or
Okay,
94.
so like 10% of the, is that right? And then, is it your understanding that once the village accepted it, then it's no longer the the developer, which isn't Mr. Clegg, then once you accept it, then you're responsible, the village is responsible for the road, correct?
I'm not gonna answer that.
Okay.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
If you want to, that's fine. I want to go back to a previous topic.
It was in direct response to this, but, right, Channing Pompa, 1161 Esterang Lane. So, as a rebuttal to you, sir, so the agreement that we obtained via records request states at the top, this agreement made on such and such date, 2017, between James Land Company, hereinafter referred to as the developer, and the Village of Hortonville, hereinafter referred to as village. States nothing about Vans being in that agreement as a developer.
So there were, my understanding is there were different phases, and my understanding is this was the first phase that is that issue.
This does refer to the phase one.
Yeah, this is phase
This
one.
is phase one.
This is what we're talking about, is phase one.
Phase one.
Correct, okay.
I think the word developer is, as it relates to Vans, is used in a different context. I think they're talking about the actual construction of the homes. Nice.
This would seem something that the terminology would be important to make sure that we're all correct on in this case though. So whether or not the developer is the person that constructs the homes or is the one that actually develops and sells the land, either way, this terminology is important in this scenario.
Hey, Direct Rouse, 1156 Esther Inn. This is regarding the timely manner fixing of the base layer. In section 1 of the agreement A, point number 7, it talks about the final course application of the asphalt. And it makes a comment about when 75% of the lots are finished, or 3 years after the primary streets in the area were completed, which I believe was 2020. In May of 2001, or 2021, I apologize, at a village board meeting, the Director of Public Works stated that a request to delay the paving 1 year was made by a few property owners, stating that the damage due to construction and traffic of that from phase 2 was going to be pushed off so that they didn't ruin the top layer. But in the phase 2 developers agreement, it makes a comment that they have to use lot 31 and gravel road, but at that time the road was blocked. So how are they supposed to use it, which then degraded our road even more, the base layer that was there. So that additional year that it wasn't paved, the road significantly got worse, to the point where it cost more money to repair. And in some of the documentation of the original schedule for the repair work was over half of the original estimated cost. So, so if you're saying that it's $13,000, I don't understand how that's $13,000 of the original, when the original was 123 or something like that, right? So if it was about half, how would that map that up then?
Because it's a preliminary estimate given from the engineers. They don't know necessarily the structure of the road at that point by the time that it's going through to get resurfaced. So that's why they inflate the numbers so that we don't have the opposite effect where we're telling you guys that it's 2,600 and then you guys come in for the final assessment and it's 44. That's typically why we always overestimate those initial ones.
Can we see the final numbers?
Yeah.
The breakdown?
Right, yeah. I don't have it with me, I can get it
What do we do about the repair stuff?
I would say that
Where does
the
it
village,
sit?
so this assessment number does not include our engineering that we're covering. It doesn't include legal fees that we're covering. And those amounts that we, would be about 7% of the project as well. So I think if you guys want to put money towards it, I wouldn't necessarily think that I mean, it's up to you guys what you wanna do with the repairs, but
Well, that's what I asked.
Well,
What are our options?
You said the repairs are about 13,000. So if we take that 15 that we had talked about before, that would offset it.
It's 20.
Well,
We have to go.
15 or 20. Who said 20? I thought so.
So I guess at this point, we have more information than we started with, right?
Yeah.
We had the preliminary resolution. Obviously, a number of the residents that are here tonight were here then. We were surprised by the reaction. I at least was surprised by the reaction and some of the things that were said. We've gotten some more information. We've got two developers saying, not us. And if there's a dispute between those individuals and the property owners, I think that's for them ultimately to work out. I can't work that out for them. But now we're at a point where we have final numbers. The cost of repairs are much lower than we initially thought that they would be. We see that there was a mistake with the recording of the development agreement. I think that there continues to be a misunderstanding as to the purpose of the municipal letter that was issued. This is to ensure that a closing can occur without a current lien needing to be paid off. But, it's up to now you, the village board, to decide, is this a situation where we want to make this more palatable and would consider contributing toward this, or do we think that the numbers as they are correct or fair? It's a political decision for you to make.
So what I'm hearing is that, we can't do anything about the portion of the damage, the portion of the cost for the damage, but they should
Well, I
go
don't,
back to,
We
go
don't-
back to
we
Clyde?
should
I
personally go after the
don't follow
developer.
with what we're doing here.
I'm saying that we've gathered more information at this point.
Okay.
If the developers or whoever the residents purchased the lots from failed to disclose that this assessment would be upcoming, if they say they didn't, I don't know.
So can you just say that there was an assessment coming? They failed to disclose to us that there was an assessment
That
coming?
the final layer would be assessed in the future, correct?
But I still come back to if the village, if you're deciding that that isn't something they should do, I feel going forward as a community, if a subdivision is being put in, the village should be very upfront with whatever the homeowners are gonna be stuck with, which it looks like in phase 2, you were. Phase 2 happened and all this,
That's,
good.
that's the thing that gets me too, is I'm Angie Kraus at 1156 Estrian. So in Wildwood Phase 2 developer agreement, it clearly states that the village will be responsible for the road and that will be assessed to it. The wording changed drastically. In Phase 2, it says a temporary that was not it. The village shall be responsible for installing the asphalt paving, the top course asphalt paving to finish the streets when 75% is done. And blah, 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 the expenses for the final top course of asphalt pavement and paving of a cul-de-sac shall be paid by the village and assessed to the lot owners as provided in paragraph 6. Our section 7, which is the same exact point, says the asphalt paving of the final top course, the pavement is to finish streets, blah, blah, 75%. In the event it's not commenced within 2 years, the developer shall pave the cul-de-sacs within 6 months thereafter. And nowhere in that statement does it say that the village is responsible for it, which would then be defaulted to us. So the assumed thing is that this is an agreement with the developer and the village. So if the village isn't listed, I assume the developer is paying for it. And that's all the information we got in the, I don't know who's, it says on ours, public record request that James Lane Co. is the developer in that one that we have, which includes that information.
And the fact that it changed so drastically from phase 1 to phase 2 means somebody realized that they made a mistake. And it costs money that you made the mistake. And it's probably probably the developer person that wrote it out, that didn't have it in there. Because it wasn't, they didn't state it. It has to get passed on to us, because there was a mistake there.
Why did the village assume this? Why did you take this on? What was the decision in that meeting that's been posted to take this on? Why did you take it over from Jim?
I don't know what you're asking, took what over from?
I'm asking because in all of the paperwork, so the question here where is the confusion between the village and the developer? Because the language here is the village versus the developer. When you say you took it over from the village or the developer piece, when did that transaction happen? Was he cleared of this as far as legally terms in your mind?
There was no transaction, something is being misunderstood.
She's saying when it transferred from, when we accepted the roads in phase one.
Thank you. I
For the
appreciate it.
preliminary.
I can address that. The right-of-way becomes the village's right-of-way upon the recording of the final plat. The quote, acceptance of the road is more or less an inspection. It's an administrative thing. It's not any legal significance to accepting the road. It is basically based on an inspection of what has been built. It meets the village requirements. That's all it is. That's all an acceptance is. There's no deed, there's no paperwork, nothing. It is a internal administrative inspection and review of what has been built. The road right-of-way is the village's upon the filing of the final plat. So.
And when was that done?
2018, I think, is when we released the bond for the hole that we had on. I think that's when the staff did.
Just as some legal background, we can add to the turmoil here. The subdivision ordinance basically makes the responsibility for all the improvements to be made by the developer. All of them, including the top course. I don't know how this development agreement came about, but basically the development agreement said that the village will special assess the top course.
Not for phase one.
Not
For phase two. That language didn't exist in phase
It
And-
did for phase one, that is the
It was
page,
the
that was
page.
not recorded.
But in any
Whose
event,
fault is that?
in any event,
Is that our fault that there's a page that's missing here?
I'm saying, I'm giving you straight as far as my perception of what is happening along here. Number one, the village ordinance says the developer pays for all the improvements, all of them. The development agreement says that the village will pay for the final top course of the road. So the development agreement the village entered into basically does not comply or conform or is inconsistent with what your subdivision regulations are. A community, as a legal matter, cannot contract away its authority to special assess or not to special assess. So not only was the obligation for special assessment in the development agreement inconsistent, basically, as a matter of law, a municipality cannot contract away its legislative powers, and levying a special assessment is a legislative act. So, what we have now is, what do we do? The municipal letter is foggy at best. Some might argue it's not accurate. We're not sure exactly what pending special assessment would mean. but in any event, even a clerical error cannot prevent the village from exercising its legislative authority to special assess. If a building inspector issues a permit in error, in other words, not consistent with a requirement of the village, you don't get a vested right to that permit. The permit can be revoked. So if there's errors on the part of the village here, the law is very protective in terms of preserving their ability, their legislative ability to do what is necessary to pass legislation. And that's, I think, where we're sitting here. We're not, we're looking at the village as kind of like a part of a three-way argument here between the developer, the builder, and the village. And the law is very protective about the village and preventing the village from doing something legislatively that it has the discretion to decide whether or not to do it. Let me give you the best example. This village board could write an ordinance and say, in the village of Hortonville, there will never ever be another tax increase. And that would be contracting its ability for future village boards to raise taxes if it was needed to be raised taxes. So that's kind of the same analogous legal principle we are confronting here or talking about with respect to the village. I think it's a political decision at this point to what extent, if any, the village will do a special assessment, and the rest of it as between the developer and you, or the developer and the builder. Those are things I think that you will have to work out. That's it.
I say, I never came intending to say that you couldn't do this, and I thought I was trying to be clear last time. I understand that the village board can assess anything that you want. You can charge anything that you want.
Well,
But like, no, I mean, like, they can assess it however they want to go about assessing it. Like, they could charge us any amount within that cost.
yes,
They don't have to charge us that cost.
correct.
And if there was miscommunication along the way to every single home in that area as to what was gonna happen for the road, it's their choice how they wanna handle it, like you said, as a political matter. How do you wanna handle it? Legally, you can do whatever you want,
Right. That's
but
it.
as a political matter, what's right? It's not illegal. Legal isn't always right.
Right. Well said.
Okay. So where we're at so far is that we've already assumed 7% that you're not seeing up there. So the village is already covering some of it. And what we're discussing is if the village can cover more, and if so, how much is pretty much all. I think you said it very well in that there isn't a legal question as to whether or not the streets get assessed for it. I mean, we're talking about pulling money from Cedar Street, and some of you caught it, part of the conversation here. They're seeing assessments which have been published. They're $10,000 or more. Yeah, I think the highest one is $18,000 for someone that lives on Cedar Street. Okay, so we're talking about seeing how much. So if it seems like we're not doing our best, we're looking at taking money away from somebody who's going to pay 6 times what you're going to pay, and taking some of that money away from them to try to reduce the amount that you're going to pay. So I just want you to keep that in mind as to what we're trying to balance, because there's no piggy bank anywhere.
I don't think anybody wants it taken out of the village. We want either Jim or Vans to cover what they told us was going to be done.
I would love to see that.
I understand that you
Yeah.
have to do what you can,
Yeah.
but when Jim goes door to door and tells us how much money he has spent and how many millions he's making on the back,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we can't do anything about
Yeah.
that, though. There's nothing,
The situation we're at
we
is we
can't
have
solve
the bill.
that here.
We have
We
the
have a bill
bill
we
for
have
the
to
top
pay,
coat,
so-
and the bill equates out to the $3,041 per residence if we split it up.
So how
And
does
we
this
have to pay that.
come down to the repair section in here that falls back on the developer? you should be able to chase them on the back end for that. There was an awful lot that had to be replaced.
Well,
15,000 still, or 13,000.
you know, we talked about,
Seems low for that.
Seems low.
Like,
we talked about giving you credit back using the $15,000, which would be more than offsetting what the repair costs were. Is that correct?
taking out a cedar, we would rather,
It's not Cedar.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is.
The 15?
Yes,
Yes.
it's part of the
That's
49.
I stand corrected.
That's my concern.
I say on the,
Where's it on?
My question, when you do all these repairs, do you go for, try to get grants or anything, or don't, you just go to the taxpayers for all this?
The state of Wisconsin used to give a lot more money to the municipalities than they currently do.
And the
So-
cost of materials.
Yeah, and the cost of materials has
incredibly
gone
high.
up.
So,
So
yeah.
you take away, they took away money.
And then increase the
And,
cost.
and then, so the state government looks good because then they can put money someplace else, you know how that works. But they took it away from funding, helping to, or assisting to fund the municipalities to redo the roads. So now the burden falls upon the residents and, you know, who live there, and then the rest of the residents of the village. And, it's not like there aren't a lot of grants out there for redoing your road. There's grants for stuff with the lake and police department and things, you know, things like that, but there's not a lot for redoing municipal roads. Yeah.
I'm Terry Plunce, live on 1173 Estrand. I'm curious as to, you know, you said there's no transaction from the developer to the city. So, and we're missing a page in the report or whatever. When does, how come Jim can just wash his hands of missing paperwork, missing agreements? Like, I just don't understand where you maybe could legally help with that, to push back on him.
I don't think we can speak on behalf of Jim. I mean, obviously his attorney's here, but
I don't think we're asking you to speak on for Jim.
Yeah, please.
We're asking you to speak for you to get the money from him.
Instead of like saying, well, you know, it's gonna be your responsibility, you know, we can get together.
That 15 is from the O'Reilly sale.
but it was intended.
I say all this paperwork states between the village
not
and the
from-
developer. And you're the village, he's the developer. I know it trickles down to us, I realize that. Like I said, when there's things in here in black and white, and looking at this initial breakdown for the repair and the finish of the top coat, there are 8 items on here. The top 4 are all for repairs, and that was a pretty hefty part of the total. So if there's things that fall back on the developer, so be it. And I find it very odd that it's just a toss up in the air and we're gonna wait and see what falls down, if it's Vans or Jim. So there's gotta be some type of order here that it can go back to somebody. Somebody's obviously responsible for this. And it looks like everybody's just throwing their hands in the air and leaving it for what it is. And I won't accept that. I don't, that's not right.
Well, I mean, the village has been, I mean, they've been pursuing the matter on behalf of the residents, right? It's not like we haven't been in trying to get our legal representation to speak with Clegg's and with Vans Realty, right? But we are still limited as to what we can do. And where we're sitting now is we still have to put the top coat on. We can't just leave it. So we had a contract to put the top coat on with MCC. And now we have a bill. And we have to pay that bill, right? And it doesn't mean that we've you know, it doesn't mean that we've done, that there isn't something else that can be done. It doesn't mean that we haven't done everything that we can do. It doesn't mean that we will or will not get anything from anyone. But at this point, we're having the meeting to say this is where we're at. And I don't think there's anything stopping any of you from contacting Mr. Clegg or Vans and expressing your
It has been.
But whatever, however you wanna phrase it.
I mean,
Yeah, we can
unfortunately,
fight
not
this
having
all.
anything
We've
in
gotta get
writing,
to
we were, I've
some answer.
run into something similar with a previous house I owned. When we went through things with Vans, that was actually my very first question for him, was, I see that road needs to be finished. Is that something that's gonna be there, you know, that comes to me on the back end, or is that in this? I was told that everything is all included in it, the road's taken care of, it's finished, but unfortunately, Van's work doesn't need squat, so. But that's what I was informed. Once we got the initial assessment in the mail, I had called Vans, and he had told me, he goes, no, he said, that's all taken care of, that's all been paid, that shouldn't fall on you at all. And what did he get back? A couple hours later, he got back to me and said, oh, sorry, I was mistaken. So, that was, like I said, unfortunately, there's nothing in writing with any of it, but Vans didn't even have a clue which way they were going with it, so.
You were one of the later houses too.
Yeah, we were one of the last ones in.
Well, they knew because they went back to the title company with the information. So whoever you spoke to may not know, but as an organization, they knew.
Had everybody, build everybody's houses.
No.
Anybody else?
So are we saying the final decision is not going to be made today, that it's still under discussion, or are you voting on? What are we learning today?
The goal of this meeting is to get the final number that will be assessed, the years that it'll be assessed for, so that I can get the information to get a final draft for the final assessment paperwork.
May I ask two questions? First question I have is, with the first initial letter that we got going out with the first estimated total of $4,104.96, it stated that either the entire payment can be made in full or in two payments with 6% interest over the course of 2 years. Where is that 6% interest supposed to go?
So the reason we put 6% is we didn't know where the percentage was actually gonna be at by the time that this was all done. So that's not the case right now. Right now it's at 5, according to our loan person, so.
It goes to the bank.
To the bank, we have to.
So we'd have to take out a loan on it, the village would have to take out a loan on the residents' behalf and
So
pay the
we're-
interest.
We're paying back the interest essentially for it not being paid initially up front.
Correct.
Yeah, correct.
So, yeah.
We're footing the bill for the village with that.
No, it's the bill
Three
for,
costs.
it's the cost of the assessment. And then if you decide to defer into payments, then there's interest because you have to borrow the money to make the payment is due, the payment is due, when's the payment gonna be due? Nick? Approximately.
To MCC?
No, or the assessment.
To the bank.
Oh, it's gonna be worked out where it'll be applied to your taxes.
Okay, or
So,
to MCC, when do we have to pay MCC?
probably pretty soon here, but I don't have a final notice yet.
Okay, so-
Final payment.
So we would make the payment, and then, it's just like buying a car. If you pay for the whole car up front, you don't pay any interest, right? I mean, if you have a bill for something, you pay, if you pay it all up front, you don't have any interest, but if you decide to finance it, then the interest is, it's not, you're not paying the interest for the car dealer, you're paying the interest because you decided to stretch out the payments. So that's, the short answer is, the interest goes to the bank. It doesn't go to the village. Because the village is not fronting the money to pay for this project. If, whatever isn't paid right away, it comes from the bank, and then the money from you goes back to the bank and pays for it. What was the other question?
in that same letter as well too, it stated that part of the reason for getting the road completed as quickly as it needed to get completed was that it was unsafe for first responders to use and respond down that road. I know, Mr. Treble, we had talked about it on the phone. Which first responders were actually asked about the safety of that road?
I was talking about the engineer comments in the engineering letter. Well, it's part of the preliminary engineering report, and one of the reasons why we're using the blue colors to this. So,
Yeah, I don't think we ever received any complaints, so.
no, it was,
Because I don't think anyone's arguing the validity of it being safe or not, but when a letter comes out saying that we're specifically referring to first responders, but none were asked, that kind of, doesn't really seem very upfront and honest to me, especially considering a first responder lives on that road. First responder wasn't asked, so I therefore had no comments to say whether or not it was safe or wasn't safe.
Yeah, if it was contained in the engineer's report, and it sounds like it was, it wasn't necessarily saying that the road is unsafe in its current condition, but that by finishing the road, we would ensure that it would be safe for use, for this use among others. I think it was one of the benefits recognized by the engineer in his assessment of why the project is important.
And I think we would all agree with that. I just believe that we would also agree that that's not exactly what was portrayed in the initial letter.
we don't edit anything that the engineer puts forth through McMahon, for the reason that it's not from the village, it's through McMahon. So anything in that engineering report is not altered unless it's by one of their employees.
All right, thank you.
Sir, did you state your name and address?
Channing Palmer, 1161 Espring Lane.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, are we making a motion tonight?
I mean, I just need direction, I guess.
What do you need direction on? You need,
The final amount, the years that you want to allow.
and the final amount on what you had up there was $3,041 and some odd cents. But then Peter was talking about using some of the funding to help alleviate this and bring it down to roughly 2,500-ish.
Well, that's, according to the notes here, it doesn't come from Cedar Street. According to this, it comes from the sale of O'Reilly's property.
Well,
Yeah.
No.
It says,
I-
and it's
I
meant
was-
to reduce the
I
amount.
just want to clarify
it
that
doesn't
point.
say that, it states
Okay,
that
Mike.
we can use those funds.
Right.
So that it doesn't necessarily hurt the other project.
Okay, so with that
Because
in
it was
mind,
it wasn't, yeah,
can I finish?
yeah, sorry.
With that in mind, if we took 20,000, so we could get the assessment down to 2533.33, payable in one lump sum over a 2-year period. Realizing
It would
that
be a
we're,
little less than that.
well,
like
we talked
25,
about that, but we don't know what that number is. Not to exceed 2533.33. Is that good? We're paying for the repair costs.
So you want to put, is that, are you making a motion?
That's my motion.
What is it?
Let's
Please
renew
repeat.
this.
But if you read this next sentence, the remainder of that sentence, it says, is meant to reduce some of the amount from the Cedar Street project.
Yeah, well, look,
That's what-
okay, we can
that's-
be
so
here
that's
all,
what we are
we
taking
can be
away.
here all night, just back off, okay?
I'm not,
All right, so my motion is that we make an assessment to the property owners in phase 1 in the amount of no more than 2533.33 per year.
No, not per year.
no,
Total.
You're saying per year or total?
Or
That's the
total.
total.
I'm sorry.
Total.
Thank you for correcting. With the amount, with an payable upfront one lump sum or over a 2-year period.
We can have discussion after a motion is made, can't we?
Yes.
Yes.
So I still need to know how this impacts Cedar Street, because I'm still confused about that. I'm very concerned that the more we pull out of this fund is.
This reconstruction had nothing to do with water and sewer. This
Okay.
is just a top layer. So
Okay.
the idea would be to add whatever's taken from the CIP money, which is the village's money, that was initially going to be for Cedar, we can supplement through the water and sewer fund. So the water and sewer can make Cedar Street whole, because water and sewer is the reason that Cedar Street is even happening. So the streets weren't the issue then.
Which
So-
would reduce their assessments also?
Right, so it wouldn't impact their stuff, wouldn't necessarily impact Cedar Street.
Percentage-wise, would you know right offhand how much percent would be deducted from theirs compared to this if we went ahead with this motion?
The issue with Cedar Street is figuring out, we only have preliminary numbers. We're
Okay.
still waiting on all of our numbers to get in. It's overestimated just like we did with theirs, so I couldn't tell you accurately at all what Cedar Street's is gonna be. I have taken the preliminary numbers and ran some numbers for them, and there's definitely things we can do as well, but I don't think it's gonna impact Cedar Street. It's not necessarily them impacting Cedar Street.
And was that money with water and sewer earmarked for anything water and sewer related? That is moving from one to the other?
No. Water and sewer fund basically has excess funds right now. Most of it is used for roads, so we usually just estimate about 200,000 before. The issue is now roads aren't, am I answering your question or not really?
I ask this because water and sewer rates is always a concern, and I know that there was several years ago where we had to have a certain reserve of money, so we had to raise our rates.
It's not getting pulled from
It's
there.
not pulled from there,
That's
okay.
completely separate, state law won't allow us to touch.
That's what I wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Jane, can you read that motion back, please?
I have. Peter Olson made a motion to make an assessment to the property owners for no more than the total of $2,500 payable over a 2-year time for Wildwood Phase 1.
Okay, that's the motion I've made.
Is there a second?
And we're still discussing.
No, we're still discussing.
Well, you know, you're getting off on a different track. I think we need to close this out. That's another discussion we can have at the board meeting if you want to bring it up.
No, before we can, she wants to know what's gonna happen with the money, right, for Cedar Street, and what's gonna happen with the money, and Julie wants to know how we're gonna pull the money from, the water, or from, public works, right? These are questions that pertain to this, as to how much money that we can contribute to try to alleviate some of the payment. Okay?
That's not what it says here.
That is exactly what it says right there.
Did you get that?
I got right here. It says, 49,000 also is meant to reduce some of the amount of the Cedar Street project, right? That goes into
Okay.
CIP, and
Wait,
you have this pool.
read the sentence before that. Read the sentence before that.
But we don't wanna
Okay.
do that if we don't have to.
And that was an option.
That was just an option. The other option is that water and sewer will put it into the Cedar Street.
You have a number of options.
Right.
And-
Yes.
Funding,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
And what is a reasonable, acceptable amount from water and sewer to contribute? From my reading behind this was 15, was probably your high end, and 20 was over what you were thinking.
I mean, water and sewer is very healthy for only spending $200,000 on a $350,000 project. So our annual income was around $250 prior to our $107,000 loan that fell off last year. So we should be at $350,000, which we use our revenue to fund our CIP. So
Like that said, we're behind on a lot of projects
Right.
that need to get done
Right.
that have been pushed off for a
Broken
very
water
long
mains
time.
Right.
and broken
Right.
water mains and, yeah.
We are gonna have to pause a few years because of some of the
Yeah, so
expenses.
saying
are-
that we're healthy
right.
now is one thing, saying
Well,
that's ignoring that we have a lot of back stuff that isn't.
right. It's,
Up to date
I'm talking
either.
about our annual income is usually that 300, then you take out the CIP money and you end up getting around 20 grand in.
Which is part of the reason we have the Cedar
Right.
Street problem, Cedar
Right.
Street problem we
Yeah.
have. It's old and it's past due.
Right.
This would be the reason for Julie's and my concern is that we just got done having a discussion about how we're gonna have to start putting off some of the water and sewer projects because we don't have the money to pay for them, right? And now we're saying, oh, we can just pull 15, 20,000 out of water and sewer to pay for this, even though we just got done saying
But you
this
have
project,
other
and this project,
options.
and this project are.
But you have other options. And you're doting on this one with the water and sewer. That's my point.
Water and sewer can fund more of this project because of the fact that they're the ones creating this issue.
They're funding the
If
Cedar
it,
Street
if it
project.
wasn't for the village initially wanting to put in 49,000, that's not, we didn't used to do that prior to, like, I think, around 2017 and back. So then the village ended up having some money that they could put towards the projects to reduce the cost down. That's the point of it. But water and sewer is, they will be fine this year. That's not, if you're talking about pulling 15 or 20 out of there, it can do, it can satisfy it. It's, yes, it'll obviously impact our budget, but it's one of the options that we have.
We're just doing our fiduciary responsibility. We're just trying to do a responsible thing
Right.
here. Nobody wants to assess our friends and neighbors. But we're also in these meetings every couple of weeks, hearing about how we have to push off certain projects, water main breaks that we, you know, this is an issue, this is an issue. I just get nervous when we're pulling from one
Putting
to,
a Band-Aid on it instead of fixing it, right?
correct, because now,
The projects that we have that are being pushed off are multi-million-dollar projects for 2 blocks, and that's why. It's, so we don't assess someone more than their house is worth. That's the issue we're coming up
We're
with.
coming up on that on $18,000 for a house on Cedar Street.
I
yeah, that's the
understand.
problem on Cedar
And
Street at
that's-
$18,000.
I
That's
understand that,
huge.
but
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's such an unfortunate,
it's gonna take long-term financial planning is what's gonna get the village on board moving forward with the water and sewer. The issue is they never have done that in the past, at least from my understanding, is they didn't do long-term planning like that. I mean, it usually was done kind of just which roads need to be done, but they didn't do the financial end as well.
like we get a 5-year CIP kind of thing. How does this affect?
Right, that's
Yeah.
not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm talking about long-term debt financing is what we're trying to build up for, so. And if the plan is to go forward, to start adding in funds for future projects so that people aren't being assessed at 20 grand a year, then we do need to start applying more funds on the CIP on the village side and on the water and sewer side.
That's another whole topic.
Right, and we'll have a lot more meetings discussing it going forward, so, but
There's a motion on the floor.
Is 2 years long enough for a payback?
I don't know, 2,500, 1,250 a year.
These guys are obviously expecting we're expecting nothing, and now we're gonna,
And that doesn't
Well,
cost
but
the village
they were
anything.
expecting nothing, but then
Right.
they also were expecting that it was gonna be
$4
covered by
grand.
the developer,
Yeah.
as were we, so.
well,
I mean, there's just, my concern here is that we start throwing money at it, and the village now is taking 100% responsibility for it, and that means Jim and Vans, and there's no recourse at all, because they're the ones that have the recourse against Vans and Jim, not us.
they still can.
Collectively.
How?
they
Because
could.
they're not paying for it then.
I'm
We're
not,
paying, we're covering the damage.
well, they
Right.
can still go, I
Yeah,
mean,
they can go
technically.
And then they
if
get pay nothing, yeah. But
I mean-
we're still out.
Right, well, some. But not all.
Just that, I mean, whatever, it is,
I-
it just is, it's,
Mr. Clegg.
I don't think they should have to pay, but I also think it stinks. Just smells bad.
But also, we gotta think it's up to them to go after the
Right, they
That's
have to
true, they
pursue
have to
it.
Yeah,
pursue it,
it's
for
up to
sure.
them.
That's their
If they want to, but we still have to do this project.
So you're saying a village as an entity can't pursue a developer, but the individual that lives in the household should pursue a developer?
I would say the paperwork that you have says so, right?
But, this gentleman on the left here, up in front, didn't he say that, when he said that you guys needed to go after the developer, was he referring to us or was he referring to you? Because he was looking at you.
I think you.
You.
Well, First
You.
of all, for the village to go after $13,000, it'll probably cost them 20 to get 13. It's kind of a fool's errand.
For us too.
Yeah,
We're
same
asking for
thing.
96,000.
But you still have Jim walking around.
But you gotta remember, if the village goes after them, it's costing all the taxpayers, because where does the village get their money? From you, on our taxes.
We're paying
So-
for Cedar.
For us to go after the developer, doesn't make a lot of sense.
I mean, there's some credibility behind what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. It's no slam dunk as far as a legal matter, and I believe we're gonna spend at least 13, probably more, going after it.
I'd like my tax dollars to go towards something that
Right?
is gonna say we're not going
And
to.
put it in the street. My kids are already through school. Put it in the street.
No, I'm saying to go to the developer.
I'm not following it.
We're gifting the developer $100,000.
Who is the developer?
Nobody's on.
Because we don't have the same builders, none of us.
Let's put it this way, there were a lot of balls dropped throughout this whole thing.
Why do we have to?
We're the ones that are, and we're getting them all.
We weren't in the game.
Yeah, right.
They sign paperwork.
The statutes allow up to 10 years to pay it back. If, when you do the final resolution, there will also be a form that goes out in terms of elections by the property owners, in terms of whether they're gonna pay a lump sum, whether they wanna go with the installment, with the interest. That will be part of the final resolution. Part of that, final resolution will also be interest rate. And you can charge the interest that you're being charged plus some sort of administrative fee. You can charge less, it's all up to you.
I would like to amend my motion to assess the property owners in Phase 1 of Wildwood subdivision an amount of not to exceed $2,533.33 to be paid lump sum or over a period of 3 years with the interest rate at 5%.
Is there any way that motion can have whatever the going rate is at the bank, not necessarily, what if you call the bank tomorrow and it's 6%?
So we're locked in right now.
In like a potential
At
loan is
5?
what you're saying?
Right. The reason the percentage rate is higher is the way that we have to take out the loan has an interest rate in which it can be paid back at any time. So even though it's a 3-year loan, if someone ends up selling their house, they have to work that out with the title company, and then the title company pays off the whole thing early. So we have to have it be kind of variable payback structure.
There will be a final resolution that you have to act on.
Right.
And that final resolution will have those terms. But you will have to have, that final resolution will have to be adopted in an open meeting.
Right. And then
So,
the other part of that
maybe you
is,
can give us directions tonight about how to draft that. And
the bank percentage rate is 4.5. The village has always put on a 0.5% interest rate for maintaining of records. So, admin, yes.
Keep in mind that 253333 is not cast in stone either. It's gonna be less than that.
Well, slightly.
Well, so the rate may change too. So there's a motion on the floor.
The motion is.
Did you ask for a second?
Is there a second? I didn't know if anyone was done talking.
Oh,
I would just like
I'm
a
not solid on that
clarification.
amount.
The motions that we have.
she'll read it back to you.
2533? Is that the motion?
Yeah, or less.
Not to exceed.
So that means the motion is that it's 2533 then?
Well, it'd
Or
be,
less, whatever the
We didn't,
it'd be.
Not to exceed.
Right, you'd be applying, I think what he's getting at is you're adding 20 to the village is paying
Right.
20 grand towards the final cost.
Can we just divide 20 grand by the total number, instead of keep saying not to exceed? I don't know if you're, I don't understand. why you
Well,
keep
so
saying
what they don't have is, there is a $3,696 amount that Clegg is gonna be on the hook for something in phase 2 that's applying at phase 1. So he's gonna cover that cost. That's what they didn't have. So that's,
not the developer.
well, he is in phase 2, and in phase 2 it states that.
Couldn't agree more.
20,000 towards the 76.
Yeah. It's 20,
Village.
the village, he's offering the village covers 20K from wherever
From wherever,
To-
there are options.
to reduce their cost down to the 2,400, whatever.
Right.
And spread over
Not
3 years.
25, 33, 33.
So you're not including the gym part. And then over 3 years at 5% or whatever that interest that we are.
2533.
Nathan, we're setting a precedent here.
Huh?
We're kind of setting a precedent here.
You did 2 years ago.
I get that. So we're setting a precedent here. So every single assessment that comes through, this is gonna be every one of them. I mean, we're
Well,
looking for money
no.
to.
No.
You've addressed that in phase 2, so like as the village themselves, like,
Yeah.
it's been addressed in phase 2 that it's upfront. I think
That's
the
on
issue
new
with this
homes.
all is
Yeah.
when it was presented,
On new homes.
everybody that entered into the homes there,
Yeah.
it wasn't presented clearly from the village, from the builder, from the developer, whoever that was, anybody. That's the issue, and I feel like people have learned from it, so it's a learning experience.
I guess what I'm getting at is we're pulling money that was earmarked to help out those residents on Cedars. Some of those folks are getting $18,000 assessments.
Those are not new homes.
And so that's where that's where I'm struggling with this, is that we're setting a precedent that next time, so when we're doing the Cedar Street assessments. we
Or
have-
any other street.
Any other street, now we need to find money to help alleviate that, and we created our own problem here.
Well, we do it all the time. We did
I
it
know.
with Brookwood. I mean, it's just,
It's been done before.
I know.
you have to take each project separately,
Mm.
and yeah, if you can help, you help.
You help where you can.
Well, right, and that's the point of increasing the CIP next year if you want, or those are some of the things that you can take as steps in order to alleviate some of the assessment.
Are we hurting though that other project by doing this? We're helping here, but are we gonna hurt that? I think that's, I need
No.
reassurance that we're not hurting that other project.
You guys have the full control over what happens with that other project. I mean, it's not, like I said, you can pull funds. We have some that we got extra revenue this year from the sale of 2 properties that we didn't have budgeted for because we didn't know if they were gonna go through this year. So there's funds there for revenue side that can be partially added in towards that assessment as well. So there's other things you can do that makes it so Cedar is whole.
What does the board want to do?
What?
You have more questions?
Well, we have another 3 or 4 hours left yet. We might as well.
There's no power at home, so at least there's air here.
Yeah.
Is there, yeah, I mean, the flickering the lights.
The south side of town is out of power.
Yeah, whenever.
Okay,
So none of us have power right now.
All my coolers are out.
so I probably have power. I'm on a different substation.
No,
Main Street is one, the other side is the other.
So going after Clegg is off the table from the village? Even if it costs me $13,000?
Well, if it costs us $20,000 to get that 13 back, we didn't gain any.
Yeah,
We
that's-
actually cost the other residents of Hortonville another $7,000.
We'd probably rather pay the $13,000 cost between us.
No, it would, yeah, but it would be
You know what I mean?
20,000 to get 13.
Jim's attorney is very quiet.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
The only downside to Clegg is that, and that's assuming you win,
Right.
Yeah.
right? And
What
the
if you
only
don't win?
The only downside to Clegg is he has to pay his attorney back there.
Now you don't even have the money to put towards your project because now,
Can I ask one question? Gary from 1172 Estran Lane. Why can't you just, when you're paying the bill, why can't, is it how you're gonna bill us? Why can't you bill him?
We don't have the legislative authority to do that.
No, he just said you did.
No, we have the legislative authority to special assess the owners, the property owners.
Okay, so.
But Clegg,
if you
well,
then-
Clegg, well, if whatever properties Clegg owns, he
All
would
right,
still have
just
it.
argument's sake, just so I walking through this, so you're gonna come to us to help pay that bill. You're billing us, we could just say, we don't wanna pay it, no different than he would say he doesn't wanna pay it. Isn't it kind of the same line of thinking there?
Then we assess it to your house. That's the issue. He doesn't have a vote in that.
It's not that
He
we're
had-
coming to
but
you
he-
to
But
pay.
that land was his. I
Yeah.
mean, I guess really key here is was he a developer, or is he just some loon that's walking around offering trees? Okay, he clearly is, he owned the land. It's Clegg's Lane, for God's
Yes.
sake, just on where I live, okay?
Yes,
There's
I
evidence
understand, yes.
Present that he had something to do with that,
Yes.
okay? He's telling everybody where you gotta put your mailbox.
Yes.
Okay, so there's evidence that says he was a developer. If he owned the land, then some of that cost easily, as a legislative body, like you guys say you're not, you still should be able to bill him. It's, to me, I don't understand this, that's why I think we're all here. And thank you, by the way, you guys have helped us really bond. I mean, we're,
Block parties.
and listen, I get where all you guys are coming from, I appreciate every one of you at least listening to this, but it's very, very black and white, and it's shady that he can walk without any responsibility. I don't like what I'm hearing about Cedar Street, I agree with her. But we also look like, okay, we've been wronged, we don't wanna, you know, all of us, I think, are pretty astute buying houses here, we don't wanna rob Peter to pay Paul, we don't wanna do that to our neighbors. But somebody that lives in this town that was a developer, as he said, that's unlike anything that's ever been done. I don't quote me on this, but stick it to him. My God,
Well,
what are we waiting on?
We're not the ones who can.
You guys are gonna write a bill to us
Well, no.
to pay for that, and you are,
Yes.
because that's how you're gonna do it to our house. But him owning that property and then selling it, at one point he became responsible for developing and owning part of that process.
Yes.
So it's easy for you guys to write that bill and send it to him to make him pay. Now if he wants to fight that, that's fine, to lose because you don't have the documentation, but
from my point of view,
We don't, yeah, but we don't have something to bill him for, unfortunately. Because we don't have an agreement with him
How do you
to,
bill
since
us
you bought your properties from him, we sit on the side and facilitate, because we can't get everybody together to go to MCC and build the road for you, so you bought your properties from Clegg directly or indirectly, all right, and had your houses built. And we, as the village, sit to the side and say, okay, well, we will facilitate getting the roads in, but here's how it's supposed to be
Okay.
paid for.
So.
So there's no transaction for us.
Top layer aside,
Yes.
okay, because I think a lot of people here would probably say like, okay, and I'm not speaking for people here, but as far as the repairs, and they're not all done, because I know across the street from us, not done. Still letting tractor trailers go through, I've warned you guys about that, it's not gonna stop, still does. It's tearing up that fresh asphalt, I've got tears in front of the asphalt in front of my house already. Okay, so you guys push that through. Now that's all through the developers on phase 2 that he's going to pay for. Okay, that damage is still happening to our roads. It happened when he was a developer, bringing trucks down to phase 2. Okay, so we're paying for repairs that he created. In a sense, you could just fine him if you want, for whatever the
There's no
damage is.
evidence that he created those. Most of the houses that were built in your subdivision were built after 2018, after the binder was down. So once the binder's down, I think there was 3 in 2017 that were built without the binder. Once the binder's down, all of your houses other than those 3 use those streets, and yes, they somewhat deteriorate over time if you don't finish them at an adequate time frame. So part of it is
But if the cause of the damage is created by the developer in phase 2, so you're saying homeowners in phase 1 are responsible for the damage created from phase 2 of the developer? So then we have to front the cost.
Phase 2 is, I know you guys aren't gonna, you see differently, but they're supposed to be using that other road, and I get.
They're not.
Right, and
So
we've
not-
addressed,
Yeah.
I've gone out there multiple times and have yelled at Mr. Clegg about talking to the developers of the houses in that area. But I can't sit out there with a stop sign and
At least like to hover around every corner, I think we could set one around there and, help keep them away.
Can we put a road close sign so that the truck traffic can't get through?
Nobody went down it when we had our road ripped up.
Yeah, well, that's not an advertised to rip up our road, okay? Because we don't need to pay for repairs for, all the damage that's already happened.
Not for through traffic sign every day if it keeps them off.
Doesn't matter, when you have that sign that use that other road, they still don't use it, they just wrap right around it. And I watch them turn around and watch dump trucks go past my house in Terry's. And I ring. You guys need data, I'll give you data. So, anyway, that's my piece. I'll show.
Part of it maybe because that road is kind of hidden too. So I don't know if it could be more visual to a driver.
they all know.
They
where it
know.
is.
You would like really
A
kind of
lot of
know where
times
that
what
road
happens
is.
is
They know.
they go
just-
in that road and they leave coming out on our new road. Because that's when they wanna leave, they wanna
Get out
They
quick.
want to get out of the subdivision.
Is there a sign on that side to not come through?
No, just those.
There's
orange
just the
pylons.
one sign that Jim made, and that's it.
That's not a very big sign either.
Well, you guys have the cones, the orange cones, I don't know if you've seen this, but they move the cones.
Oh,
So if I'm not watching that, they move them so the trucks can go through. So that happens when you're up there. They'll move them so they can get the tractor trailers through. So anyway, you can see why we're kind of miffed a little on some things. Even trying to meet halfway, it's still,
We're frustrated too. I mean, Nathan, like you said, has gone out there and talked to Jim and talked to the drivers and it's been a lot of effort on his part too, to try to maintain
we
and
appreciate that.
keep that going, because the fact that the gate was locked was even a big deal, because that was not the agreement in the first place, so.
When was it locked?
The very beginning of all this,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
locked.
That's why all that happens.
That's why the traffic was going down that road in the first place.
The beginning of phase 2.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there was effort made there too, because there was no option for the drivers then. Just don't know how to solve it.
Can he pay the repair costs at least? Because your 20 was from something else, right? Mr. Oak?
Per the developer's agreement that has his name on it, he's responsible for the binding code basically.
And all of the
Repairs, premature failure,
and premature
just
failure.
was placed under breakup, which we had a lot of.
A lot.
So you add that onto the 20,000 that you're gonna pull out of the other fund, so that's gotta be like,
We don't have it to add on.
huh?
We don't have it to add on. You need to talk to the gentleman who's sitting right over there next to you who's representing Mr. Clegg. You're talking about, we should add Mr. Clegg's money
No,
on, we
that
Oh,
don't have
base,
his money.
The base, the 13,000 for the base, we're paying for that then?
Yeah.
To fix the base?
Well,
Yeah.
they're trying to move money.
Who does the village consider, like, at the village, who do you consider to be the developer, like, when this started? Who was it on our?
The reason I don't wanna comment, because I think I believe it started as Clegg. And then what happened was he couldn't get it going, so he brought in Vance.
Cause it sat for a long time, he sold
Right,
it, right?
and that's my understanding. I don't know 100%. I don't have that in writing.
But the developer's agreement never really changed between the Jim, or whatever that land company that Clegg was, and then Vans.
They
So one of,
They both signed the
They
back.
both signed.
If you look at the back page, it has both names, both of them
how
signed
come we
it.
can't hold them responsible for that 13,000?
We'll ask him.
How come we can't hold them responsible for 13,000?
Just to be clear, so this is the development agreement I have that says Vans
Can we just not
Realty. Well, you guys keep on referring to Jim Clegg in this, and I don't know where you're getting. He did sign this, he said, at first, and I remember the attorney said, would you mind signing on to it, and he agreed, just agreed with him. He's not the developer.
But does it say on there that the developer is responsible for repairing that binder coat that initially went down? Would you agree that it says in there that the developer of the subdivision is responsible?
The document speaks for itself. I'm not
What do
going
you
to
speak for it?
What I would say is, you guys have to understand, when this, they fixed it in phase 2, but in phase 1, the original.
This is just phase 1.
Right, but phase 1
They
is.
don't care about phase 3.
Okay, I agree. So phase 1, in my personal opinion, is the page 3 did not get recorded that says specifically about.
So then, how much does that mean to you?
Page 2 is responsible,
No, page 3 was the one where it says that the village will
But it wasn't.
assess.
for the top coat. The page 4 said that he was, that the
But
developer.
the page 3 didn't get recorded, so you, just like you saw on phase 2,
I'm rescinding my
slide, anyway,
motion.
that it says it's very specific, it says, the village
I
assesses the top
believe
coat on
I'm
14
foolish earlier
opinions.
work.
That page 3 did not get recorded, and
So, excuse me?
that's why you guys are saying, I didn't know about this.
On page 6, it says the developer further accepts full liability in any all premature
Because he
failure,
gets-
installation, or
he keeps
breakup
getting
of said binder layer, and shall assume full responsibility for the repair of any problems in a timely manner. That's page 2. They have
That was
it.
recorded.
And then,
So then is Jim,
I can
Jim
give
the
you-
developer, or is Van?
well, Vance, the developer was phase 1, and that's what it says, right in the agreement. And hold on a second, hold on, let me finish. So as far as fixing the problems, my understanding is that the village took a look at it, and when they accepted it, that it was in good condition. They can correct what I'm wrong.
So this is the point, this is the problem that I have with what you're saying, is that what is in public record of the building department is not that document. So, to our opinion, that document doesn't.
Well,
When public record comes through, document.
This is
So when we do an open records request, we're gonna get that document.
I don't represent the village, guys. I don't know what's an open record request. I'm saying this is what was recorded.
Recorded where?
At the register of deeds. So if you contact the register of deeds, you can.
So
get
what
it.
page 2
Can you go to page 2?
Can you please look at page 2?
Look at page 2 and then look at paragraph number 1, 2, 3. Read paragraph 3, if you would.
This is all.
Or just like silently, you don't hear it aloud.
Look at guys,
I understand you're here, we would ask Jim all of this, but you're here for him. So
you can just, I mean, here's the bottom line.
He gets out.
The bottom line is, the village is gonna assess the top floor and
We're not talking about the top floor, we're asking about
the
the
$13,000
repair, which it says right here.
in my understanding, again, I'll say it, this is the last time I'm gonna say it, my understanding is,
No, I'm asking you a specific question about this. I would rather you just treat us like, you're not our lawyer.
I
You're
agree.
Jim's. And I'm just asking you if your interpretation of the developer further accepts full liability for any and all premature failure, displacement or breakup, and of said binder layer, which was the bottom coat that they had to fix before putting the top coat on, and shall assume full responsibility for the repair of any problems in a timely manner. So, because he didn't do it in a timely manner, and they waited years until they had to put the top coat on the road, he just gets to skate from it? Or whoever the developer is. I'm not asking you to say that, what I'm asking you is, does that say whoever the developer was is responsible? Is that a clear sentence?
well, again, I'm not your lawyer, okay?
Actually, you are
Yeah,
actually.
you are, you did my.
You are
All
our
right.
lawyer.
Okay, maybe I am. That just got awkward. Anyway, I mean, I'm not gonna, the document says what it
You're on the table.
The document says what it says, but my understanding is, as I told you, that the village was supposed to assess the top coat, and that pages missing, I agree. And secondly, that then it got up to code or to their specifications, and then the village accepted it.
Who is the developer?
I'm gonna say it one last time, for phase one, it's Van.
Okay, so is Dan responsible for the repairs?
So Jim's gonna say no. So then it's
765
banned.
residents are.
It should be responsible, because of this, right?
And we
That's
got
what that says,
the
for
generators at
13,000.
the lift station. I just told her to send them an officer. Just because.
Somebody
April 6th, 2017.
Well, I was wondering if
This is what these people need to be watching.
what's the data? Well, yours is on.
This is gonna.
This is just,
How are we gonna solve this?
this is starting
We
back.
can't table it.
No,
We've
they
simple
need
We've just basically taken our stand and maybe we'll go forward with the.
Guys, we need to kind of,
Yeah, we need,
well,
we're
it's,
talking about that.
Yeah, we have to take it. If they wanna soup plate, let them soup plate.
No, I will later.
You know, because we could go on all night.
But I don't know if he's there.
It's gotta be, we've gotta take a stand and if they want to play.
we gotta kind of bring it in a little bit, so that we can allow the board to talk.
So this is phase one.
I think, yeah, this is on phase one. Yeah.
So
The way
phase
Nathan
one,
talks about it, I think we're okay with this one.
that's what the agreement.
It's still a concern. We have to trust him.
Nathan is telling me it's not a concern, that water is gonna have the measures.
No, yeah.
I talked to him this afternoon.
These guys don't understand that Nathan walked into this mess wasn't created by him.
Yeah.
Or our concerns now.
Basically, we have to take a stand, and they can go ahead and do whatever they want.
For what?
Okay, I think that's a reasonable question. On file, who do we think,
Why are they?
who do you guys think is the developer? We've heard Jim's side
It's
here.
both. That's the way we consider it.
It's both.
Their lights.
Right.
Then they skip it.
Then they're both,
Somebody wanna let
they are both responsible for cost of that.
What's the issue?
No issue.
They called you for disturbance.
No issue.
Chris just called it in.
She just,
Okay.
she just said, walk through.
That's it.
Yeah.
7:30, you wanna check the library?
Yeah.
Go back there.
It could be.
Just to kind on the crowd down, Chris said she'll send it on.
I get that, but I didn't get that. He didn't understand
Yeah, he didn't understand.
Anybody have a suggestion?
Okay.
Anybody have, because nobody likes Peterson. Does anybody have a suggestion?
No.
I
Found
only
the
thing
video.
Paragraph 3.
I'm worried about the money.
I am too, I'm very worried, because we don't have the money.
Paragraph 3.
Wait, Jack.
The developer, whomever that is,
Make it go for 15.
whomever, pick a guy on the street, the developer is responsible for the repairs. Full responsibility, regardless of who it is, I don't care who it is. That's up to the agreement was with the village and whoever that developer is. So they should be responsible for the repairs. I would feel like that agreement gives you guys, the village, authority to go after that money.
What's being this?
Okay, so the question I have is, we don't know when we're getting the bill from MC, but we know that it's coming.
Right.
When is the pavement
We're
actually
basically
happening?
covering, yeah.
Pavement happened.
It happened, it's done.
Right.
So we can't even go back and look at that binder quote. You've already got documentation of all that. I'm sure they do. I think that's the biggest concern here is that if we're paying for I know, and I understand. I understand.
Are we, I feel like we have two parties here.
Because they seem to be concerned about
You didn't buy it.
We can make any argument.
Right, whether we win though.
But without owning property in that phase, I mean, we don't have property to assess. So I mean, the only way to shake that out is to let it go.
But Jim is on record anywhere saying he's the developer. That doesn't
I mean,
matter.
but
No, I'm getting that.
who do we take that dispute to?
I don't know. I mean, we have all of these on video.
Right,
And
but
every time he's come to the board, I mean, that's where I struggle with this too. I get where they're, I get it. I totally get that. I have a hard time making a motion and assessing somebody and moving forward with this but then again, if they have a different type of potential for litigation, I mean, I don't know what to say. I just feel like.
What was the top quote price?
The total, just the top coat, minus the, minus the 13 potentially.
Minus from the 96 or whatever that was.
Yeah.
Basically, we're paying for it because we're gonna give them 20 grand anyways from the CIP.
Basically,
We're covered.
yeah.
Plus the other 7%.
plus
Plus
the
more.
7% you're already.
Plus the other 7% that we're already covering. So we're taking on 7% plus another 10%, so we're taking a chunk of this. Actually, the whole village is taking
Yeah,
a
the
chunk
whole
of it.
village
Yeah.
is taking a chunk.
The whole village.
That's the part.
So while you're having your, yes, while you're having your discussion, what we're trying to balance out here is that we're taking money from your neighbors. What we're doing here is we're talking about how much money are we gonna take from your neighbors to pay for your street? Because they were not gonna take money, and then when their street gets done, how much money are we gonna take from you?
What's going on behind me here?
Yes.
Is discussions on how to get that money from Clay, so
That's-
we don't do that, so we're on your side.
Wait, okay.
You understand that?
Yeah.
We're all on the same team.
But we have to
Yeah.
be
Right.
So at this meeting here though, we're trying to figure out, because we have to pay MCs, we have to pay for the road, because the roads went in. Okay, whether it's completed and signed off, and everything, the road's going in, and we have to pay for it, so. How much of that are we going to take from your neighbors?
Pay the
To
bill now.
pay the bill. Because if we take money, if we get into too much of a, okay, well, you guys are paying for your road, so let's take money from everybody else and we'll pay for yours. Now, when it comes time for their road, now we're gonna have to take money from you. And we're always doing projects in the village,
We could
always.
just run it like Ashwaubenon, where it's built into your taxes for everybody, and their roads, like, I have friends that live in Ashwaubenon, it's like 5 years, 6 years, they recode all the roads, no special assessments, nothing new, it's just part of their taxes. You know, it's like it's already built, like what we were saying before about planning ahead for stuff. If we plan ahead and know what's gonna happen, we can just build a budget that includes everything. It's gonna happen, we're gonna have to fix the roads all the time. Like that's just
100% agree with you.
Budget our money
Yeah.
to accommodate.
That's what Nathan's trying to do right now.
That's what Nathan was trying to do right now.
That's what he's
But
saying. It's like, I'm not-
that's down the road, we can't fix
Yeah,
that for
we've
the
been-
now right now,
Right.
that's
We've
the
been
problem.
looking at
Not
possible
something we
ways to
can
do that
discuss
moving
now.
forward, but none of them are very attractive.
No,
It's like,
because it's all
one
about-
of them, for example, is to add to your utility bill. Who wants a higher utility bill?
Yeah.
I mean,
Water bill.
Well,
you know, who wants to add extra $60 every 3 months to your water bill?
When we raised the water bill like 10 years ago, it was to fund the new wastewater treatment plant,
Yes, I'm
right?
still funding that.
And it's, you know, I mean, like, we raised it so we could pay for that.
Yes.
And it still didn't, we just fell off, though, you said the loan just fell off on it?
A different one.
Oh,
Yeah.
fine.
But I mean, like I have a shop in Neenah, and my water bill is $9 a month. And Neenah sends me a bill for $129 a month. Because they want me, that's one of the things with the utility, is it unfairly burdens businesses. So they make me pay, so that way somebody who has a residence who have a street in front of them doesn't have to pay as much. But everybody's bill would go up. There's like New London did a wheel tax, and then everybody's mad at New London because they did a wheel tax they've been collecting, and anecdotally I've heard they got like $2 million, and everybody complains that the roads are still horrible, right? So there isn't a really great solution that we found to get away from this yet. And even if we did, we still aren't in a position for this situation to do that. So the only thing that we're trying to figure out here is how much can we take away from your neighbors to pay for part of your road?
How are we gonna fix
And
it for the
what's
neighbors
fair?
going forward?
What's fair to take away from them? And when I say take away from them, I mean, we say we have money here, we have money there, there's money in, public works and things like that. Well, that money came from your neighbors, and then that money has to be replenished.
That's very well worded.
Yes.
Put guilt on us.
No, it's not, I'm not trying to put guilt
I'll
on
finish.
you.
No.
I'm just trying
Reflect
to
that and
explain
don't
what
take
we're
guilt
thinking.
And understand that the language put in everything we're reading says Clay or Van should be
Yes.
paying this. So I deflect that. I'm not taking away from my neighbors, they are.
Well,
And you guys are trying to take care
Yes.
of us to right or wrong.
Well, in our last house, our taxes, still in Hortonville, were like 2,700. Now it's 6,700.
yeah.
We're still paying for this road, no matter what.
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing is, do you want everybody, I mean, my taxes are really high too, and I don't want my taxes to go up either. And then after this road is done, you're definitely not, because my road's done, and once your road's done, you're not gonna want your taxes to go up to pay for everybody else's road now, because you paid for your road. So that's the dilemma that we run into in looking at this is, well, somebody paid for their road, 6 months ago, and now we're gonna get rid of special assessments, we're gonna tax everybody. Well, they just got done paying for the road, so now they had to pay for theirs, and they gotta pay for everybody else's. So
Well,
there's no good
Jerry,
answer for that.
I don't care about the taxes,
Yeah.
as long as it's going to something. If you're fixing roads because they frickin' need it, and some of them around here really need it,
Mhm.
it's a town that's growing, we're about to have maybe less traffic now, with the highway kind of diverting around town, well, it's a chance to maybe do this right.
Yeah.
So, I don't want my taxes to go up, nobody does, but if it makes sense and we're putting in the right areas, I don't think the common citizen necessarily has a problem with that.
Yeah.
It's knowing where this is going.
Yeah.
And where some people get away with stuff and where others don't.
Yeah, and don't misunderstand. I'm not trying to, I started by saying, this is what we're trying to figure out. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. I feel guilty that, and I'm trying to make myself feel less guilty, I'm trying to justify taking money from one pot to put it into another, right? And I know where that pot, because it's not my money, we can write this and be done. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty at all. I'm trying to help you understand what it is that we're struggling with.
I understand your plight.
Okay.
I understand what you're trying to do there, clearly, I think we all do here. I think that, you guys have said it, you understand our perspective here.
Yes.
And we're understanding our perspective by reading what is written in agreement. So we're having a hard time understanding if it's written in an agreement, just bill them, because it's there. And you're afraid of legal bills because he's prepared to fight it. He's hired a lawyer, he's changed the phase 2 wording, he knows he's screwed up. He's on his heels. okay? So he knows it's coming. That's why he's, you know, and so you guys need to look at that hard too, and not try to rob Peter to pay Paul. Do what's right. Okay? Sometimes you gotta fight for what's right.
Maybe the bill will.
There's something to be said for that.
Where do we stand?
What if we did do that? What if we did send him a bill?
We can't.
I'm just saying, what if?
Well, I mean, we can send anyone a bill, whether they pay it
Right,
is another
I mean,
thing.
what,
I mean,
we'd have litigation on it.
Yeah, he wouldn't
Right.
pay it.
yeah, dude.
So what I'm gathering from the village legal representation is it's recommended that we do an assessment. If we can make some reductions to make it soften that blow, is this how I'm understanding? This is how I'm understanding, because we have that. That's the best course of action, and if there are other actions taken later by citizens, then is that how I'm understanding
I can't
this?
recommend for
No.
or against an assessment.
No.
I can just tell you that at this point, I mean, there's nothing to leverage. We can
No.
send him a bill, it's not worth the paper that it's written on. So, we think that if we were put in a position to litigate it, we'd probably end up spending more money than would make that legal action worth it. And you may contribute, and you may still get dragged into a lawsuit, because if they bring something against the developers, I mean, there's nothing that would prevent, I know that.
Yeah, we'll look through the development agreement again, see if there's any chance. I mean, we've run 2 or 3 times already.
But does it match the one he has?
Huh?
Does it match the one?
I think we've got the ones you have, but the bottom line here, being a jerk is not against the law.
We could top of the list with that one.
But I also don't want you to misunderstand, to think that if the village contributes, that we in no way would end up getting dragged into litigation between residents and the developer. That could still happen.
You could always send him the full bill and let him try to get it from us.
If he doesn't pay it, charge him 6%.
The unfortunate thing is MCC is expecting a payment, so we have to pay them, and we're gonna take out a loan,
Right.
and now we're paying interest on something that, we have a bill that's not worth the paper it's written on. We have to pay this, we have to pay MCC for the work that they did.
Correct.
We entered into an agreement to pay them.
The ball's in your court.
Maybe come try to get it from us.
We do the 20.
When we doing a motion?
I think it's longer than 3 years, to be honest with you. 20 in the 3 years, 5 years.
At 20 for 5 years?
What do you want?
Set it up for longer. Why does it have to be 3 years?
It doesn't.
It doesn't cost us a
We said we
dime
can set
a-
it to 10.
Yeah, we
Up
can
to
set it
10.
as long as we want.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that gives them time to do whatever they need to do.
Yep.
I just feel like
I think we
Should go
should
long.
put it out 2 more years. Is the bank gonna be okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, they're not gonna care.
5,
They get
6,
interest
I mean,
on it.
give them, you know. And why do we have to say 3? I mean, I think, even giving them that length of time gives them more time to do something if they wanna do something. I'm not recommending or not recommending. I just think that if you choose to do something, then you've got some time with them. And if I were assessed, I'd want the most amount of time to pay that back to soften that blow. And if we can do up to 10 years, why not do longer than 2 or 3, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I feel their pain, And,
Me too,
Yeah.
corner.
I think we're
Hit
backed
twice.
into a corner right now.
Yeah.
Well, I live in a corner, I got hit twice when they redid mine, so
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
And they're gonna need to do mine again.
So what amount are you suggesting?
Do you wanna make a motion on that? Or aren't you prepared?
Nobody wants to make the,
Yeah, I know.
nobody wants to make the motion.
Yeah.
That's
so
the problem,
we could-
nobody wants to. Peter made a motion for
Yeah.
2 years, then he amended it for 3 years. I mean, we have to
We
pay
could-
this bill.
Let's
Okay, so-
double it to 6
So we could
Well, we could do
or
that.
10.
10.
Okay, 10 what?
If
10
the bank's not gonna jump all over us, let's do 10.
So, I know this isn't a number on our end, but, we could, I mean, and this would be in line with what Peter did, if we just set the amount, can we just do that for the assessment? To say the lower end here, which is 2533, which is the number that's been getting thrown around. And that comes, that's less than the 20, but right around, that's more than 15, but less than 20.
Yeah, so it's an in-between.
Yeah,
Okay.
And what duration are we putting on this? I mean, that's,
5 years. I mean, 5 years is a long time for 20, who thinks they need 5 years to pay off $2,533?
And 5% interest, not very long.
yeah, nobody wants to pay the interest, nobody wants to extend it that long, but if
It's there if they want.
it, you know, it's there if they want it, you know?
Okay.
And
All
when
right.
would the first
If they need
payment
it, they're-
be due to avoid
Hmm?
interest?
If they need to.
If they need to, then it's a much lower payment than if we did
Right.
2 years.
Okay, so, all right, so I'll make a motion.
Let's see, how soon would we have to pay it to avoid interest, to avoid the 5% on
I
it?
think that's with your taxes.
No, it would be,
Well, we can write it that you pay interest until you're in the period from the final resolution to the first annual payment, which would be due when your taxes are due. Or we could say there is no interest on that period. I mean, we got a lot of flexibility here.
it's 11/15, the
And
date.
I think it would be helpful for you guys. I mean, you still have to meet as a village board to do a final resolution where all this stuff is in black and white in front of you. What would be helpful to us is an idea, like, we've got the 2533, we've got 5 years to pay, we got 5% interest. We can put it down on paper. The way we write it up, you might want to tweak that, but you will still have to have a village board meeting to adopt that final resolution.
No, this is a regular board meeting. We can
Right,
do it
but
right.
we,
But
we,
you need a
you
resolution.
consider a preliminary
Yeah, you did a preliminary.
with different numbers. So we're gonna have to go back and update that and bring a hard copy final resolution back to you for you to consider and adopt.
And you'd want it paid in December or January.
So if you want it, typically in the past, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean it will happen this year, but typically it's usually by 11/15 we need to get anything. So if it's not paid by 11/15, we usually then start assessing it to the property.
Well, we can write it up some way that it's due when normal real estate taxes. That will just be on your tax bill, your installment. And then we have to decide whether you guys want to charge interest from now or when you pass the final resolution up until when the first payment is due. I mean, we could say interest accrues during that period, we could say it doesn't. There's
So
a lot of
somebody,
options here.
so if somebody wants to make a lump sum,
They
to
can do
avoid
it.
any interest, we could put in this resolution that we have a specific date that they could make that lump sum by to avoid any type of interest.
Then, like I said, we'll do it'll be called notice of payment, election of payment.
Okay.
And you put your tax parcel number, you sign it, how you want to pay for this. Whether you want an installment, whether you want a lump sum, and then there will also be directions on like how the interest accrues, blah, blah, blah. Principal 1/5 every year, plus accrued interest, et cetera, et cetera. It'll hopefully become plainer for you to see when it's black and white.
But basically, the bill would be due the end of the year.
That's the way,
We would-
that's the way I would recommend they set
Yeah.
it up. It would be due when you're paying your
And then we'll have our kids send Jim a Santa letter, asking for the Christmas presents.
You got a tree, maybe get another one.
She's gonna have her kids
There you
send
go.
Jim Santa letters.
So proceed,
What's that?
proceed with your motion.
So we can do a motion then?
But I think you have to put all that in the motion about the interest and all of that stuff.
Well, we know enough now, if you're okay with the 2.5, you don't have, I don't know.
Just put the.
No, I don't think that we need we've got direction to bring something back to you now at this point.
You don't need a
What
motion.
we're
I'll
bringing
second
back
the
is
motion.
2533.
We don't have.
We don't need a motion.
We don't
need a motion.
Oh, I thought you made
a motion.
No, it's all, so we're not making.
But now they're saying
No,
we don't
I
need
just
a
need
motion.
directions what to do for the next time.
There's a direction. Did we give you enough direction? 2533.
Is that a hard number, or are you still saying that was the top end, but you didn't know based on the final numbers how much that would fall? Because that was the top end of it when you were saying, when you were discussing.
Well, I'm suggesting that'd be the hard number.
Yeah, is it a hard number?
That would be the hard number. And that puts the village absorbing about 17%, 16% of the cost. The 7% you don't even see. So the top 7% we already absorbed.
So basically, we're directing you to go ahead with this,
To draft it and to
Right.
bring
to
it
draft
back
the
to you.
resolution.
5
Bring
years.
it back to the board.
5 years.
5 years.
Yep.
And we'll look through this thing quick for, something that, we'll see if we can do something on time, but like I said, we've already read this stuff a couple times, nothing came.
Yes, sir.
Quick question, are we gonna get a separate bill for this 2533, or is it gonna be added on to a tax?
Goes on your taxes.
We'll go on your tax.
I normally typically send out a letter saying you can pay this by a due date. I have until November 15th to tell the county to put these special assessments on your tax bill.
So you can pay it before it goes on your.
So we can pay it?
You can, yes.
Before
I'll
the
give you that
tax bill
option when
comes?
I send the letter out.
When the
You are gonna
tax
send
bill
a letter
comes.
out Explaining all this?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
It's a special
Thank you.
assessment letter.
Alright.
Tells all the options, the interest,
Okay. Sounds
the
good.
years.
Thanks.
Okay, are we good then?
I don't think we're good.
Well,
Okay.
there's no good.
There's no good, but
There's
I
no
mean,
perfect in
are we
this.
moving on?
Is there
Everything
any-
was decided, we're all in agreement?
Yep,
Okay.
as much as we can be.
We'll now move to B, discussion and possible action on creating a new position, facilities operator 1.
So this position is basically to.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Input and efforts.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, so this position is basically, our facilities operator is retiring in April next year. The village budget, basically for next year, we're planning on adding another full-time public works employee. So then, the idea would be, the goal is for us to have at least 3 full-time street employees, and then 2 for the water and sewer, and then a facility. Right now, we currently have 2, but we're minus 1 from our Hortonville. So this would add the other position. You could do that now. We had a candidate when we were doing when we were doing interviews for operator 1 for streets that had a very intriguing background that would benefit the village a lot in building maintenance and lock operation.
What does it do to our budget if we're adding them now?
So
That's the number.
it's about, I think, around I think it was around around $8,000 it would potentially cost.
Eight? Okay.
And that would be on the village side, and it's actually saving the water and sewer side because the percentages switched when Chris left and, or Foreman left. So, basically it would potentially cost the village around $8,000
This year.
with the asterisk that it's not including any benefits on health benefits. That's just payroll, FICA, and retirement calculations for WRS. That's what that number comes from. So it doesn't have the healthcare cost potentially in it. So that's always the potential. We don't know necessarily if they're gonna take it. If they don't take it, it would be you're 30 days after the start, you're looking at potentially $1,000 extra. If they are on it and they're single, it'd be about $1,000 extra. It goes up from there to, I think it's 14 or so for two.
We're talking at most like 12 grand.
Yeah,
About.
I would say so.
For this
And-
year.
Right, right.
And we were planning on budgeting in that position for next year anyways.
Correct, and the idea is, rather than hiring on the facilities operator when he leaves, rather than doing a streets operator in the beginning of the year, we would just wait, and then once he retires, we'd hire a street operator. Right, and if you guys don't feel comfortable adding the position completely, we could always just mark it as a early hire for him, so then when he retires, we don't necessarily have to replace anything.
I'm always concerned when we miss out on good people, because I know how hard it is to.
I know we're
I'm
thin.
always concerned when we,
Right.
if we're gonna miss out on these
Well,
potentially.
the one guy had, the initial offer that we offered to someone, basically, he had the same, a very, facilities background that ended up turning it down because he compared it to another offer he got. So, that's why this was added to this week's meeting rather than next week's. And I think there's a lot of competition out there for placement of
And I
positions.
know we're thin right now on our
And
street staffing.
the one thing that is nice about, you know, when we talk with them and interview these people, we basically state, you know, when we're talking, we talk to them about salary and we say, you know, we're not gonna be able to compete with other municipalities around here. And he, the one applicant was really, didn't care. He basically wants flexibility for family life, which is the one thing we can offer that other places don't. So that's kind of fits the ideal, I would say, for some of the stuff. His background, he worked for the state, for the Fox City, or the Fox City's locks, maintaining the dam locks there. And then he has some building background as well. And he'd be a good asset for us to have. So that was kind of the idea.
How much experience?
He worked at the locks from it's either 2011 or 2012 to 2020. And then he took a job for the post office and he hates it, so. He's been trying to.
Okay. I've been trying to hire somebody for a year, so I'd say if you got a good candidate, hire somebody. That would be what I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Do you
exactly.
wanna,
So is that the new position you're trying
so,
to?
yeah.
We need to
Okay.
create the position, I mean,
So-
what is the benefit of creating the position versus just sliding?
So if, well, then I have to bring it back to you at a future date to add in the new position. It's not.
So the benefit is just efficiency at this point.
I mean, it's not even that, it's just not having to come back again. But it doesn't matter if you guys don't necessarily feel comfortable adding a extra full-time person in the public works department. We could always just chalk it up as a cross-training than his replacement until.
But we're gonna add it next time, or next year anyways, right?
Potentially, I mean, you could.
So your sample motion, the second one, is what you're seeking, correct?
No, the first one.
The first one.
The second one is just talking about cross-training.
Okay.
If you want to create the position so that we have.
A slot for them to go into.
Right.
Okay. Nope, I get you, okay. We have more discussion, or are we ready for a motion? Okay, then I will make a motion to create a new public works facilitator, or facilities operator one position.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, we will go to number 5. We need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're now adjourned.